Up, everybody? It's Bart Johnson here. It is Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, meaning it is time for us to once again hang out live here on the channel. If it is your first time here, please consider subscribing down there so that you can join us every time we go live and be part of these wonderful chats and hangouts that we do on a weekly basis. Or at least they're scheduled on a weekly basis. I know I missed last week. I've got a lot of crazy stuff going on. Working on the house, the studio. I mean, those guys are just tearing through stuff, and so I got to try and keep up with them. But we are back today, and we've got something interesting to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit about getting back to work as film and video professionals. We're going to talk about new guidelines, stuff that's happening that we might need to change in our workflows, obviously safety concerns, how to work with clients, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about that. Before we dive into it, I do want to make the disclaimer. I have it listed down below, but I do want to just put out there that I am not an authority on all of these guidelines, all these protocols, and obviously I'm not a healthcare professional. But what I am doing today is going through the information that has been publicly released out there for us in the film and video creation world, and all this stuff is available to you guys as well. So we're going to go through as much of it as we can and share some ideas and talk about this stuff today. But I encourage you to take a deep dive into the material that I'm going to be sharing with you today. There are links down below so you can really take a deep dive after this even. Familiarize yourself, figure out what applies to you, what might not. And of course, as this is always a fluid situation with the way the world is these days, do make sure to check with your local, whether it be state, county, country, wherever you may be, as to what their particular regulations are for getting back to work. But anyway, I wanted to put that out there. I see we've already got some people in the chat. You guys are awesome. It's going crazy. So let's get this chat up, because the beauty, of course, of these live shows is that we are live. So let me get this going. And here we go. We have our chat here. Even before the show began, we had Shiz coming in with a super chat. We've got €3 there. Shiz, you are awesome. Thank you very, very much. He was digging the elevator waiting music. You only get to hear the elevator waiting music if you're here waiting for the live show itself, because that gets trimmed off in the replay. So if you're watching the replay, next time, if you want to hear the elevator music, make sure you're subscribed and have that notification bell on, and then you'll get to hear it. We've got Aram in here also with a $5 super chat right off the bat. You guys are amazing. He says, E2F6 arrives today. Been a great help on this decision. Thank you. Congratulations, man. That is fantastic. As you know, I've got my E2F6 right here, and I've really been liking it. And if anybody else is interested in some of my content on the E2 F6, or actually all the E2 Z cams, I have a few shows about those. They're not in there right now, but after this video is, or after this live stream is complete, I will put links down below. So if you're watching the replay and you want to see some of that Z cam content that Aram has apparently found very helpful, that'll be down there. Kevin, the basic filmmaker, you made it, man. Good to see you. Hit the like button. Thank you very much, buddy. Always good to have you. We should have a good conversation in here today. This is some interesting and important stuff. Let's see. We got a couple people talking back and forth. All right, so we got Kevin and Shiz talking back and forth. But as you can see, in addition to being able to communicate with me here live, we also have great conversations that take place in the chat. So if you are in here live, I encourage you to engage in this chat because we got some cool stuff to talk about. And something that's really cool that we just started doing as of the last stream, so it was 2 weeks ago, and this is in relation to these gentlemen, doing the super chats here, is since I've been in the process of rebuilding my studio after the fire that happened last November, we're putting money in it and getting it up there. I am taking all the super chats and using that money to go into the studio And then those people who have super chatted will get their names on a little plaque that I'm going to put up in the studio. Just a little something to give back to you guys, because you're amazing for contributing to this channel. Now, don't feel obligated that you have to do that. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to fundraise or anything like that. But I just thought it would be a cool little thing for those super chatters. And actually, I have mocked up here. So those of you who have already super chatted, starting in the last stream, here we go. This is just a simple mock-up of a plaque. Not saying that this is what the final one will look like, but these are our super chatters who have been making donations on the channel here that are going to go into the new studio. So thank you guys very much. Again, nobody is obligated to do this. I'm not asking for fundraising or anything like that, but just a fun thing that I thought. Kevin says, how do I get my name at the top? I've been ranking them in order that they've come in, okay? I'm not doing tiers or anything like that, Kevin. But anyway, so today, like I said, we're going to be talking about all these new guidelines, regulations, protocols, at least the ones that I've been able to pull. They're going to really apply mostly, obviously, to the United States, because that's where I'm located. So that's where the material that I've pulled for today is being sourced from. But they're all good practices no matter where you may be. So, like I said earlier, make sure you check your country guidelines, your state guidelines, your county guidelines, your province guidelines, whatever it may be. But we're going to go through some of this stuff today. Before we get into the heavy stuff, we did something else in the last stream that was actually kind of fun. I actually did a series of live polls in the last stream where I had our live audience was able to participate and answer some poll questions that I had put together, and we were able to check out the results live here on the show. So I've decided that I think we should do that every week. So every week I'm going to include our weekly poll, if you will. And so it may not be related to the topic. It's just, a fun little poll that we can do. And if you are in here live, you are going to be able to take this poll and we'll check the results at the end of the show and see where we are. And if you're catching the replay, I will leave the link down below in the description if you want to go ahead and take the poll for fun anyway. Kevin, oh man, amazing. $29 super chat for the studio. Absolutely. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. That'll buy me some nice HDMI cables for routing my new studio setup. And yes, up here you go. Thank you very much, man. That's awesome. McBribe, I like that. But anyway, guys, let's take a peek at that chat so we can have that going in the background. So our poll. So here we go. This is the first poll. So like I said, not necessarily related to the topic, but just something that I thought would be fun and interesting. It's what category of gear do you get the most excited about? And actually, I'm going to post a link to this in the chat right now. So if you are in the live show here right now, you can go ahead to that link that I just posted into the chat. There you go. You can see it right there. You can go ahead and vote, and we will check in towards the end of the stream and see what kind of interest you guys have. What kind of gear gets you the most excited. So again, we'll take a quick peek at that. So yeah, I've got cameras, lenses, lighting, audio, grip, camera movement, and post. And yeah, basically I'm just trying to see, what is it that you guys are really most interested in and really gets you excited when new stuff in that category comes out. Obviously all are important, but just a fun little thing to try. And again, if you are watching the replay, you can go ahead and check that out down below and join that. And so we're going to do this each week and see how it works. It'll be kind of fun. But anyway, we've done all our chit chatting. We've burned away a couple minutes, but now we're going to get into some of the content here and talking about guidelines and protocols and sort of this new normal and what video production is going to look like moving into the future. So as I'm sure everybody is aware, Tons of industries have been affected by this global pandemic. We've got social distancing that is required in just our daily lives, let alone our professional, activities as well. And it can be really difficult to do certain types of jobs, particularly ones where people have to work in close proximity to each other. And video production can be one of those jobs. Even if you are just interviewing somebody, you are going to be in close proximity with that person. If you're wiring up a lav mic on somebody, you're going to be within that 6-foot social distancing bubble. And so we need to be aware of these things, and we need to be cautious, and we need to figure out a way to get back to work while keeping everybody safe and comfortable. And I mean, that is your crew, whether it be just, maybe it's just you, maybe it's you and a few other people. Maybe it's a huge set of 100 crew members. You need to make sure everybody stays safe. You also want to keep your talent. If you have actors or if you are interviewing somebody, you want to make sure they're safe, but also comfortable. You want to make sure that they're comfortable, that they know that they're safe, and you also want to put your clients at ease and make sure that they know that you are taking the appropriate steps in order to keep the production safe. And there's a lot of different ways to do that, but luckily there has been some official thoughts on this that have been put out there that we're going to take a look at today. The first one is pretty dense, and there are links to these down below, like I said. So we're not going to dive all the way into these documents here, but I have linked them down below and encourage you to look at them in depth when you get a chance. Oh, Aram, I didn't forget about you there, man. It'll be an honor to be on your plaque. If you go that route, please have my name show as Aram B. Okay, I'll make a note for that. Thank you, man. Can do. I'll get you on there. But anyway, so the first document that I want to share with you guys is a big report done by SAG-AFTRA and IATSE, and a bunch of those groups all came together to sort of try and come up with some guidelines and protocols. And what they're calling it, let's see if we can go here, what they're calling it is the safe way forward. So it's a joint report of the Directors Guild, SAG-AFTRA, IATSE, and Teamsters, committees for COVID-19 safety guidelines. Now, this is a big 36-page document. Like I said, that's why we're not going to go super deep into it. Let's see if I can get myself up on here. There we go. So we're not going to go through this line by line here, but basically what this is it is laying out guidelines for safe sets. And they're really tackling large production sets, but obviously these guidelines and protocols and suggestions can trickle down to something as small as just a one-man band, interviewing somebody. So there's lots of stuff, even if everything doesn't seem to apply to you or the type of work that you do, there's a lot of great stuff in here. So testing is the cornerstone. So obviously this is where it's sort of out of my wheelhouse and our wheelhouse because we're not healthcare professionals. But testing before anybody comes to work is in there. But this is the biggest thing that they're basing everything on, is this idea of a zone system. So the zone system is literally physical areas and zones and paths through a set environment for different categories of people depending on their risk. So zone A, as it says, is any perimeter within activity occurs without physical distancing and the use of PPE. So this is stuff like your actors. Your actors aren't going to be wearing personal protective gear when they're on camera. They're playing a role or they're being interviewed or whatever it is. They're not going to have a mask. They're not going to have all that protective gear to keep them safe. And a lot of times, if they're doing a scene, they could be in close proximity to others, close proximity to crew members, makeup, who needs to get right up on them. And so those people are part of Zone A. They're the most vulnerable because their job on set requires them to be in situations where they don't have the physical distancing or the personal protective gear. So they would remain in Zone A, and there would be areas to keep them all separated from the Zone B and Zone C people. Zone C is a little bit different, but basically Zone B. And then Zone B is everywhere the production has a footprint that is not Zone A. So everything else in the production environment. And so those are people who don't necessarily need to be in close physical contact with actors, who do have the opportunity to, exercise social distancing, and can use PPE, so that, personal protective equipment. And so Zone B will remain separated from the Zone A people. And these are people, grips could be wearing masks and gloves and keeping, safe distance between each other as they work on things. And so those would all be Zone B people. And these are not only putting people in categories, but remember, these are physical zones that they're talking about setting up. They even talk in some of them about putting up like barriers and mapping out different pathways, separate restroom possibilities and stuff like that, really to keep these people separate if they don't have to be in close proximity to each other. So I know this is pretty intense and a lot of stuff in here, but I wanted to give you guys at least the overview because the zone system is really, the cornerstone of what they're building. A lot of these new protocol things are based on. And then they have requirements for people who are working and how often they have to be tested. Again, so Zone A, they're talking about like going like every 24 hours to make sure they get tested, or at least I think I saw something that said like 3 times a week they should be tested. Zone B has different things. I'll let you guys dive into this if you're really interested in those particular specs. Might be a little too detailed for you, but the information is out here. But the last thing I wanted to mention is Zone C is basically the outside world. Homes, hotels, wherever people employed in the production go when they're not working. So that's considered Zone C. So Zone A and B are on set, separated zones, and Zone C is referring to, everything else, the outside world, where the crew goes when they go home, that kind of stuff. So there's the zones. So there's, as I said in here, this one is really dense. It's 36 pages of just text, breaking everything down. And so this one is a little dense. So here you go, some charts and stuff. This one's really scientific, really well done, really great information. And, it was put together. Sorry, I'm scrolling like crazy. But it was put together by some of the leading associations that are involved in, Hollywood productions and large productions, the Directors Guild, SAG-AFTRA, IATSE, and Teamsters committees. So this is a great document, but it is a dense document. So it's not the most fun to go through, but then again, the whole situation isn't. But it's it's a lot of solid, really good information in there. And there is, as I've said multiple times, a link down below where you can go ahead and grab this and dig into it. You may feel that this is, a lot of this stuff doesn't apply to you because you're like, I don't have a set that is that big with that many people, but there's stuff in here that can be scaled down. You can scale it to the size of your production or whatever you do. Maybe you only have 3 or 4 people and you're gonna go be interviewing somebody. Okay, well, who needs to actually be in contact, with the talent, with the person who's being interviewed? Okay, maybe you can keep them separate, them and the talent. They can have separate areas from the rest of your crew. Even if it's just you and a sound guy. Ways to keep them separated, and the people who have to have contact without protective gear, keeping them separated from the others who can wear protective gear, and keeping that separation up throughout the entire process, from when the talent arrives, gets in, gets set up, maybe there's makeup involved, getting mic'd up, and then all the way to when they leave and the production wraps out. So there is additional steps and additional planning involved there, but this is going to go a long way if you come to your clients and tell them that you have this kind of plan in place to execute this stuff. And this is what we're going to need to do in order to get back to work. It's kind of crazy. And even if you're doing stuff for fun, you might say like, oh, well, we're just going and shooting a short film ourselves just for, for goofs, for having a good time with me and my friends. same deal, you know, you may not be necessarily in any legal trouble of, you know, your production being shut down for not following these procedures, but these are good guidelines just for safety, for everybody to be comfortable, and to get used to. Because, you know, this could last quite a while, and these may relax a little bit in the future as things resolve, but I don't think a lot of these practices will ever go completely away. I think there's going to be aspects of this that are going to be with us forever and integrated into production, you know, for safety purposes. And so, you know, just getting used to that workflow would be a good idea, even if you're just doing something recreationally. So let's see what we got here. Got some chat going on. Trevor says, this is uncharted, look at me fumbling. This is uncharted territory in a lot of ways. I would also encourage people to consult their physician and tell them the nature of their work. They might have good ideas too. That is a great recommendation, Trevor. And like I said up front, I'm not a healthcare professional. And things are different for everybody. And that's a great idea, you know, for you personally to take care of yourself and see if your physician has any recommendations for you to keep yourself safe while you're working and putting yourself in these environments. That is a great recommendation. And if you guys have any other recommendations or ideas, because I didn't want to just talk about this super dense stuff, I also wanted to hear if any of you are getting back to work in this field. Is there stuff that you are doing? Is there stuff that you're thinking about doing? Is there stuff that you're finding that clients are asking you about? I want us to be able to share in here some ideas as well, you know, for stuff that may be even beyond what's in here, but what's working for you, or what are you looking into implementing? Because I'm going to be doing this as well. You know, we got to get back to work. Got to put these cameras to work on something other than just YouTube content. And you know, I'm going to have to come up with a plan for my company and for how we're going to handle shoots in the future. So, you know, this is something that all of us are going to have to do. And I am really happy that these guidelines are out there, as dense as they may be. But let me see what we got in the chat here. Kevin is saying, great that they take this seriously. Have to say, feel lucky to have gotten out of the biz last year and not dependent on that kind of work. I do miss it, but what a pain in the ass on top of already complex jobs. Yeah, you know, it's definitely not convenient, but it is safe. And yes, they are taking it very seriously, which they should. And I think it's a good thing. You know, it's a lot. It's going to be a lot of big changes. It could up costs, you know, because you've got a lot of additional work that has to go in there. I didn't even mention it. We'll get it in the next one, but there's actually additional personnel for these large projects that need to be on set. So there's a lot going on. Shiz says, still seems like COVID is causing madness in LA. So many cases, and all people think about is easing things up. Yeah, so one thing with this stream and with this topic is I did want to keep it clear of any political or opinions that myself or any of you may have in terms of whether opening should be happening, you know, whether you feel that it should or it shouldn't, or a good job is being done or a poor job is being done. That's not really what I wanted to focus on. Instead, I wanted to focus on the you know, the eventuality of when we're back, whether you're back already or whether you're not going to be back for, you know, a while, you know, to doing this kind of work, what needs to be in place. And yes, this is all reactionary, of course, to COVID. It's our current pandemic, but who says we won't have another situation, you know, down the line in the future that actually ends up not being as much of an issue and is actually controlled a lot easier because we have these things in place. So these become not only reactionary things, but can also be preventative. Those are just my thoughts on it. So, you know, whether you feel that you know, it's time or it's not time or anything like that, I don't want to go down that road, but I do think that, you know, this is an eventuality, and why not? We've got guidelines coming out now. Let's get ready. Always be prepped. So, um, Kevin says no politics, Bart for president. You know, I told my wife a few years ago that I would run for president, and I think she believed me because she was really nervous. She was like, "Please don't do it." But yes, thank you for your nomination. I accept it, Kevin, and I will get my platform ready for the next election. All right. So the next document is kind of, I don't want to say redundant. It covers the same information, but in a much more, let's call it digestible format. So I found a great white paper put out there by the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, so AMPTP. Linked down below, of course, so I recommend you check this out, but we're going to take a look at it here. But it is another document that is out there covering all this information and these guidelines for how to run all of these sets. I found my particular one through my local Maryland film office. I've seen that this is the same one that I've been finding, at least in the US, like each individual state film office seems to be putting out there. So this does not apply directly to just Maryland. Even though the link that I have is from marylandfilm.org. But let's take a look at this here. So as you can see, you can probably see why I like it already and call it more digestible. I mean, it's got pictures and colors, and it's not 36 pages of just text, and it breaks this this information down and makes it a little bit more digestible here. And as you can see, this is as recent as June 1st, 2020. Like I said, this information could change, could be updated, could be outdated. So please do make sure to keep an eye on this information and what the guidelines are out there, because things can change. You want to make sure you're up to date. It's a very fluid situation, but for right now, this is what we've got. So let's take a look. Like I said, pretty with pictures and everything, but it tells you a little bit about the task force that they put together. But you can see they were in there working with the CDC, working with OSHA, working with IATSE. So this is another great one. Breaks it all down. Look at this imagery, you know, just makes it feel more approachable, doesn't it? But as you can see, they've got stuff in here for everything: food and beverages, vehicles, paper, personal equipment, props, costumes, accessories, wigs, physical distancing during meetings, writers' rooms, video village, audiences, working remotely, shared workspaces. I mean, this thing covers everything, and it is great. This one I really recommend you dive into maybe first, because it gives you the basics in a very, as I said, digestible format. This one is great. So the guiding principles. So process of reopening, talking about infection control, protecting and supporting cast and crew, health and safety, like I said, physical distancing, training and education. As I said, this stuff I don't think is going to completely go away anytime soon. These are going to become part of our workflow and production process. And so you need to train and be up to date on these things if you're going to be, you know, on a set or in a production. And then unique production specific concerns. Obviously, each production is different and needs a little bit of difference. They talk about the diagnostic testing. So again, that other document, the 36-page one, broke down exactly how often to test and all of that. But obviously, testing is an important requirement. Personal protective equipment. This one talks about hand washing. It tells you where hand washing stations should be set up, when hand washing should occur. You know, it's a great breakdown. Talks about props and costumes, accessories and wigs, how to clean those. Talks about cleaning personal equipment such as tools, headsets, microphones, radios, all those things that can be used in a production, telling you how and when they should be cleaned. Cleaning high-touch surfaces in vehicles, production vehicles, you know, if you're bringing people around. This was an interesting one that I hadn't really considered, but it makes perfect sense when I see it, is paper. Whenever possible, they say use of paper should be minimized. Alternatives such as electronic scripts and electronic sign in and sign out should be explored. Consider alternatives to petty cash to minimize the need to handle paper money, such as purchase cards. When paper scripts are unavoidable, they can be assigned to a specific individual, clearly labeled with their name and not shared between others. Same things going with crew lists, call sheets, and all of that kind of stuff. Breaking it down into just the transfer of paper, call sheets, scripts, log in, log out, petty cash. Like this is all great stuff that it makes sense when I look at it, but I may not have it might not have clicked in my brain without seeing this say I should do it. It's that little, yeah, it's obvious in hindsight, but would I have thought of that before it was too late? Before I tried handing a PA some petty cash to go get something, and they're like, "Oh, I don't want to touch that." I'd be like, "Uh oh." So really interesting stuff there. Food and beverages, not really talking about keeping. It says right here it's unlikely to be spread through food or beverages themselves, but obviously the environment of craft services and catering brings a lot of people through, brings a lot of people in close proximity. People are touching the same items as they go through. Obviously water bottles, anybody who's been on a set, water bottles seem to like multiply like gremlins and are all over the place. Really keeping track of this is your assigned one, and all of that. So it's it's a ton of stuff. Beverages, cast and crew safety, so signs for symptoms are in here. Again, I don't want to go too super deep. I think I saw a note about being overwhelmed in the chat here, but there's great guidelines in here. This is an amazing document. This breakdown of how to keep physical distancing happening in writers' rooms. They go through the entire process here. Audiences. Here's the training and education part. Unique productions, so special considerations for here. Like this is what I was talking about. Special considerations for cast and crew working in close proximity to performers. So your hair and makeup people, your wardrobe people. Amazing information. Casting and auditions. Minors, animal performers. I mean, this thing has everything. I really recommend you take a look at this document in depth on your own. Find the stuff that really applies to you, and actually just read through the whole thing, because all of it is good information to know, because you never know what kind of set environment you might find yourself on. But this is absolutely, it's a ton of information. It is. It's a ton. But I think they broke it down really well in here. Maybe grab yourself a coffee on a rainy afternoon such as this, and just sit down and flip through. I guess since it's a PDF, I guess swipe through this document and familiarize yourself with everything. All right, so let's see who is still awake and not hating me with this amount of content here. So let's see what we've got going on in the chat. Let's see here. Trevor was saying, given that this is a national security issue, it would be great if there were some kind of government assistance to help offset the additional costs involved in basically social distancing TV and video sets. Maybe grant/loans exist. I don't know about. The stimulus package was pretty big. Yeah, you know what? I can't comment on that because I'm not sure. So yes, obviously a lot of this stuff is, there's extra cost involved. There's equipment, there's time, there's all sorts of costs. There are additional people that need to be on set. That was listed in the first document. I'll have to try and find that. But there were 2 new positions. There's like a health safety supervisor that needs to be on there that's been trained. And there's actually an entire health department that needs to be created now, and needs to be a part of these large productions to oversee that, so that you've got more people, more cost. I don't know how that cost is being handled or tackled, or if there are loans or assistance. I don't know at this time. So if anybody does know, feel free to leave it in the chat, or if you're here in the replay, leave it in the comments down below and let us know, because I can't comment on that because I don't know. I know that there have been relief loans out there. Small Business Association. Actually, Kevin, basic filmmaker, had a tip about that, about going and getting a COVID relief loan from the Small Business Association of America, and that's to help small businesses, but it's not particularly targeted at necessarily like covering these additional costs of production. It's for all small businesses to keep them going. You could use that money for that if but in terms of actual targeting these additional costs, I don't know what assistance is out there at this time. Trevor says, it almost feels like you'd want to budget for a safety and health consultant on set that doesn't do anything other than look after all the guidelines. Yeah, I just mentioned that. Actually, let me pull that up, because I did gloss over that, didn't I? But yes, there have been, at least in these large productions, there is a requirement of a few new positions that need to be created, and there is one called the HSS. I believe it's the Health Safety Supervisor, that needs to be on set. Here it is. So let's take a look at this. So the health safety team, this is what you were kind of talking about, Trevor. You'd want to budget for an entire department dedicated to making sure that all this is happening. Exactly, that is happening. So the health safety supervisor will be the final authority on COVID matters and cannot be overruled in their efforts and activities to enforce COVID-19 related safety practices. So the industry white paper calls them the COVID-19 compliance officer, but obviously that's pretty specific. I think in the future, as these remain and it's no longer just COVID, but just all, health safety, this health safety supervisor position is going to be someone who's always on set. Unions and employers will work jointly to develop and provide industry-specific training for the HSS and the health safety manager. So yeah, there's an entire section in here on where this new health safety supervisor and health safety manager will fall into the hierarchy, who they report to, what they oversee, and what authority they have. It's just a ton of stuff. I see Kevin's in the chat. He says, wow, this is a nightmare for production managers. Whole new realm of responsibility. Yeah, it is a lot. It's a lot to learn. It's a lot of new people, but it does look like, at least it'll take a little bit of the bear off, creating this new health safety team, this health safety department. It's a department of film production now. The HSS works with producers, UPMs, first AD, yeah. But, hopefully this will help to spread those responsibilities so that there are people on set who are specifically looking at all this stuff. And again, you can dive deep into this, but they have, look at this, a dedicated hygiene crew, a security unit. It is a whole department. And I'll let you guys, as I said, on your own time, dive really deep into this, because I don't want to just read a big white paper to you guys there. But yeah, new departments, new people to keep their eyes on this, at least in these big Hollywood style productions, television, commercials, movies. Now, those are obviously not the type of stuff that I'm finding myself working on. I find myself doing much smaller corporate stuff, some kind of commercial stuff, usually much smaller crews. We're not doing gigantic sets and all that kind of stuff. So what I need to do is take a look at this and figure out what I can borrow from this to bring into my workflow. And that may be bringing somebody on whose sole job is to just make sure that we're following these new guidelines, making sure that, okay, talent and makeup need to remain separated from camera and audio. you know, even if it's just a 4-man team or something like that, but just making sure that everything is okay, making sure that we're adhering to social distancing whenever possible, personal protective gear, the hand washing, the cleaning of equipment. You know, after a shoot is done, you're talking cleaning microphones, cleaning headsets, cleaning cards. You know, whoever's handled a card, if they didn't have gloves, you know, you're going to want to wipe that down with an alcohol swab just to be safe. But it's a lot. It's a lot to think about. But I plan on putting together a set of guidelines for myself, for my company, for my shoots, of what I want. I will share that with my crew members when I bring them on board for particular projects and say, okay, these are the guidelines of our set. I will also share those obviously with the client so that the client can take a look and see that, hey, he's taking this very seriously. These are the precautions that are going to be taken. This is how everything's going to be handled to make sure that everyone is safe. And you know, this is going to be an important thing. It's going to be a lot of hard work and probably not the most fun work, you know, to put those guidelines together and then to adhere to them. But we need to get back to work, and this is what work is going to look like. This is just the way it's going to be. Let's see what we got in the chat here. Trevor's saying, I think overall the biggest impact will just be time. Yeah. You have to uncompress shooting schedules now. You can't just cram people in to get a bunch of shots. You'll have to spread out the shots and people. It might be easier, but it will definitely be more expensive. Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things that I was saying, and you're absolutely right. Time is money. We've all heard that, and it's never been truer than in video production and the film industry. Every single person who's there costs for the time that they're there. Equipment, spaces, everything costs by time. And you're right, it's always been a kind of, you know, how fast can we go kind of industry, you know, get in, get out, get it done, get all the people in there, and we're gonna have to slow that down. It might be something where when you would come in, and I'm just gonna go with an example for me, you know, like shooting an interview. So normally we would go into, you know, it might be a pretty small room, get set up. So I'd be working on setting up the camera. I'd have one of my assistants doing the lighting, and so he's setting the lighting up simultaneously. Audio is miking up the talent, and the talent is sitting in the chair. We're all in this room together, and we can be in very close proximity to one another. Well, you know what? That might have to change now. We might have to elongate that process so that camera and lighting can go in first when nobody else is in there, get everything set up. You know, maybe even sound goes in, sets up a boom, and gets everything positioned. And then everyone is sort of cleared out except for only the essential personnel. Talent comes in, goes right in, everything is preset. You know, obviously this would be ideal to do anyway, but for speed purposes, sometimes these things happen simultaneously, and get it done. It's, you know, it's going to take time. Let's see what we've got in here. Kevin was saying, which states would use big tax breaks during pandemic for productions and studios instead of dipping into bottomless tax money? Crap, political, sorry. Yeah, Kevin, careful, you're teetering. Yeah, you know, I don't know. I haven't had to put any of these in place yet. I haven't seen what the effect on even just productions at my level, what the cost effect is of this. And I'm going to have to speculate that. I'm going to have to mock that up and figure out, okay, you know, do I need to, you know, how much do I need to adjust pricing? And is there, you know, just a health and safety category in my billing now that, you know, covers all the health and safety stuff that needs to be there? You know, it'll be a little bit more expensive to the client, but I think if they saw a health and safety category and seeing like, okay, this is where that money is going to, it's to keep you safe, to keep the production safe, to keep the talent safe. You know, that could work. So that's something that I'm playing with. And like I said, if anybody else has been playing with this kind of stuff too, please share. Let me know what you're working on and what resources you may have found. I think I found the big ones that are out there right now in these two documents. But if you found anything else that you've seen that was kind of interesting or had some information for how to kind of proceed heading into the future, into this new normal, as a cliche term there, please let me know. And either pop it in the chat or down in the comments down below, because we're all going to have to share, we're all going to have to learn, and it's going to be something. But let's see what we got. Tax breaks would be an amazing way to help businesses offset this cost. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of things that could be done. Again, I don't know if there are things that are being done. I haven't looked into the large-scale finance side of it, you know, for films, for TV shows, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. They may be getting some kind of assistance. I'm not sure. And as I said, I need to run the numbers for productions of my scale and see what I'm looking at in terms of additional costs. In order to adhere to these guidelines and keep everything safe. I mean, it's, you know, personally, I'm going to be investing in having, you know, hand sanitizer and masks and gloves and all that kind of stuff. Just, you know, I'm going to have a health and safety kit, I'm sure, that is going to go with me on every shoot. So if anybody needs anything, you know, we have that, and they're all disposable, and so we'll have to have plenty, and just to take care of all that. And working through this workflow of how to actually get the work itself done, because we're talking about, you know, PPE and social distancing. Well, you know, we might need to implement that zone system, because fact of the matter is the work still needs to get done, and a lot of that requires close proximity and close contact. It's just minimizing that and making it only happen between the individuals on set who it is imperative or unavoidable, I guess is a better way to say it, for them to not have contact. So like I said, I've been given the example of hair and makeup and your talent. I mean, they're just going to be in close proximity, probably without protective gear. That's just the way it is. All right. So that was a lot. One other link that I did leave down below that kind of breaks this down into even a little bit more digestible. There are plenty of articles out there, but I found a good one from, I believe it was from the LA Times, that I put down below, that gives you just a really top-level synopsis of what some of these recommendations are. And then, of course, they say, you know, read the full report here. And you can read the full reports in the links down below as well. The super in-depth one, that's all text and a little hard to digest, and then that much nicer one from the Association of, was it Motion Picture and Television Producers, was a great one. Whew. All right. Let me see if there's anything that I have missed. Oh, this is one thing I did want to bring up that was that I found kind of interesting at the end of this document. I did like this right here. They already have a list of participants, and they have companies that are participating in, you know, adhering to these guidelines, which is kind of cool. You know, you've got the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. Obviously, they're the ones who have sort of spearheaded this particular document and put all this together. But we've got Amazon Studios, you've got Apple Studios, CBS, Columbia Pictures, Disney, Fox, HBO, NBC Universal, Netflix, Paramount, Sony, Disney, you know, Warner Brothers. That's a lot, and that's a lot of the major players, which is what you want to see. Like, everyone is on board with this, and this is becoming, you know, the industry standard, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I just thought it was cool that already, you know, you have all these companies who are like, yeah, we're on board, and we're following by it. Everybody wants to get back to work. Everybody wants to stay safe. Let's see what we got going on here. Kevin was asking, for your biz, do you see having to eat these costs or are able to pass on to the clients? So that's a little bit what I've been toying with. I need to calculate exactly what it will cost me per project to implement the new stuff that I want to implement. That may be, hiring additional personnel. It may be keeping things, the physical things like masks and other PPE things on hand. The time, a half day shoot may become a full day shoot. That can be built through. But I've been toying with that idea of putting together. I don't want to call it a line item, but if you look at an invoice, it would kind of be like a line item. But a health and safety fee, if you will, that would cover either all or a large percentage of those additional fees that are going to be in there. And this may just be commonplace. I mean, how many other things do we see all the time where we get, oh, there's a surcharge for this, a surcharge for that, and it's kind of just become commonplace. This may just become a surcharge that just becomes commonplace. And at first, clients may be like, whoa, 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 why am I paying more? But I think if you can stick to that, if you can show these are the precautions and procedures that we're going to be taking, and this is what costs that extra money, I think that, if you say that, okay, this is not an option, this is a surcharge, we are not going to do the production without this stuff taking place. It's obviously up to you if you decide to eat the cost on that, or whether you bill them for it. But it's one of those things where this has to happen in order for the production to take place. So that's my thinking right now. Again, I'm in the process of putting together, I want to have the appropriate documentation and plans and paperwork all in place so that, inevitably the first time that a client does red flag that and say, hey, what is this? That I can show them, okay, this is what it is. This is the breakdown. This is what we're going to be doing. This is the additional person. This is what they're going to be doing. And hopefully that shows them that, this isn't just a superfluous charge. This is legitimately, the cost of doing business in these, I don't want to call them dangerous, but, kind of dangerous times. So, that's my hope. It's unseen, it's untested, but yeah. And Kevin says, health and safety fee, not only smart, but would show the client you give up. Any client who balks will most likely not be a client to work for. Exactly. That's what I'm thinking along those lines is, putting that in there and having it be like, I understand that this is more than it has been before. If it's a repeat client and they're wondering like, well, this hasn't been there before. I mean, obviously you hope that they would understand why it's in there. But if you do meet with pushback, at least you should be able to show that like this is what it costs. This is what we're doing. This is for safety. This is not for profit. This is the breakdown, and you know what? This is what has to happen to keep it safe. We're not comfortable. I'm not comfortable putting crew members into a position that these guidelines are not being taken. I'm not comfortable putting your talent, in a position where they're not comfortable or could potentially be at risk, or I don't have the appropriate personnel or appropriate PPE materials on hand to make them feel comfortable and to protect them. Yeah, I mean, it may be a little bit of a difficult conversation if it does come up and someone is pushing back on it, but I mean, it's essential. It's what I would call a deal breaker. At least for me, you get to handle it however you want. But I think it is my responsibility to find a way to get those costs covered, because the production should not take place if I cannot, in one way, shape, or form, either by eating the costs or by billing it through, cover what needs to be covered. That's just the way it is. Trevor's saying, LOL, your client proposals will now be 300 pages long if you include all the guideline stuff. Yeah, so I think what I'll do, so I'm lucky that I'm not putting together like, a Hollywood motion picture for this stuff. So I can put together, I think I could boil something down to like 10 pages or less with a breakdown of the guidelines that I'm going to be implementing, what they mean, hand washing, PPE, social distancing, the zone system stuff. I think I can boil this down into a little bit more digestible format for my clients, so that I can provide that to them. So yeah, I don't want to swamp them with 300 pages of, oh my goodness, what is this? But I do want them to have an idea of, okay, this is what's going to be done, because it also becomes kind of the rules of the set. They need to know that, okay, this is how things need to be handled. And I also need to give them to my freelance crew that I bring on. I'll probably have them sign something. Say, do you agree to these terms, that you will adhere to these guidelines while on set, to keep everybody safe? So there's a lot of people involved that need to be familiar with this. That's where that training aspect of this comes in there. Everybody needs to be aware. There's just no excuse for not being aware. So providing it to crew members, making sure that they agree to it, whether you get it in writing, signing that they agree to it, or whatever it may be. But yeah, just educating each other and keeping each other safe is going to be important. Kevin says, since these are in force, I have to imagine whatever costs you eat are tax deductible. That is interesting. Yeah. I will have to look into that more. That is a good point. If these are, if they do become what we call kind of, I guess they wouldn't really fit into the category of COGS, costs of goods sold, but they are sort of an unavoidable cost. They are mandatory for doing business. And because of that, those expenses could be tax deductible, just like mileage on a company vehicle or something like that. That's a good thought, Kevin. I'll have to look into that. I'm no tax expert either, so let's get that. I'm not a legal expert. I'm not a healthcare professional. I'm not a tax expert. So please, whatever I am saying, do not take as gospel. Please make sure to look into the details for your particular situation, whether it be for what the guidelines are in your area, or any tax and other situations like that. Just please don't make me get you in trouble and then try and get me in trouble. I just want to share the information. But that is an interesting thought. Yeah, if you're running a business and those costs are, enforced mandatory, yeah, you're right. And there is a potential there. And I'm not sure that these are officially mandatory. Obviously obviously with Hollywood, with all of these, they have a lot, mandatory can be determined by the unions and the groups themselves. They say, you know what, okay, there may not be necessarily legal ramifications, but if you're not going to adhere to these, you're not going to have our crew, you're not going to have our team, you're not going to have our talent, you're not going to have whatever. So they can shut it down. Whether there are legal ramifications for not adhering to it or not, basically they can make sure your production doesn't happen. Now, for smaller ones, again, this is something that you really need to check state by state, because states may have different enforcements. Some may be guidelines, some may be strict protocols. Your state may even have, if your production is large enough, they may even require that you have someone present from their offices that can oversee this and make sure that you're being a part of it. So make sure to look into your particular area, and make sure you're following all of the rules for that going forward. Really, we're looking more at safety. So legal punishments and all that kind of stuff, I would hope wouldn't be such a, not concern, but I would hope that people wouldn't get to the point where they disregard safety and then are confused as to why they're in trouble for it. But I don't know, people surprise me, who knows. And money and costs, that that is a possibility. You know, someone might try and skirt it because they don't have the money to cover what needs to be done, but they need the production to happen. So it's not cool. Not cool. Don't do it. If I find out you did it, I don't know, I'll send you an angry email or something. I don't know what I'll do. Kevin saying, oh my God, you went into lawyer mode. LOL. I got to be careful, man. You know, I'm dealing with some dangerous stuff here. I want to make sure that you guys are getting the correct information, but that you guys know that I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV. You know, that's not true. So, but yeah. We just hit that 1 hour mark there. So what I want to do, Trevor says my wife is a lawyer. Nobody wants to go into lawyer mode. Awesome, Trevor. Well, maybe she can take a look at the playback and see if I did a good job sort of protecting myself there. You know, maybe you can she can give me her thoughts on how I did. But yeah, let's take a look real quick. Get any of your final questions or recommendations or ideas or anything like that. Pop those into the chat, and we'll get to those there. I see Kevin's asking about the R5. We will talk about that just briefly here. But I want to go ahead and revisit our poll and see what we got there. So for those of you who were not here at the beginning of the stream and may have missed it, we had a live poll. It was what category of gear to get the most excited about. I put a link to this in the chat, but there also is a link down in the description. So last chance to get your votes in if you haven't. But we're gonna go ahead and take a look at the results and see what you guys said. Ooh, all right, here we go. We got a couple votes in here. Like I said, these are votes from our live audience here, so I appreciate you guys popping in and voting. And if you're watching the replay, I will leave this up, so feel free to go ahead and vote down below at any time. But it looks like we're getting lenses and post. Interesting. Well, we've got cameras and post tied there. We only got 4 votes in, but that's okay. But okay, lenses. Yeah, I like bokeh or bust. I tried to come up with something clever for all of the things. I think if I do this every week, I'm going to run out of clever things to say, but we'll see how far I can go. But yeah, that's interesting. So I kind of agree. I would say I'm either a lenses or cameras kind of guy. I'm probably more cameras, to be honest. I know that's shameful because, you know, camera bodies change every like 6 months and lose their value and whatnot. And they're not particularly the type of gear that you should really invest in. You know, lenses, they always say invest in lenses. You know, glass will always retain its value. But if I'm being honest about which one I sort of geek out and drool about the most, I think I'm a camera guy. So that'll be my vote in that one right there. So so let me know, guys. Do you like those the little poll? Like I said, I'm gonna try and do that for each weekly stream. I'll share the poll and the link right at the beginning of the stream, and then like we just did, we'll check out the results at the end of the stream. For all those live chat people can go in there and check that out. I think it's kind of fun. They won't always be related to the topic. Obviously that one wasn't related to the topic. Just kind of fun little things that I'll come up with and pop in there. So I think those will be fun. A little more engagement with you guys. I like the engagement. It's a good time. Let's see here. So Kevin said, bad segue. Seriously considering the new R5. Thoughts? So yeah, no segue at all right there, huh? Just saying that it was a bad segue. I guess that was your segue. So the R5, I haven't been keeping up on it beyond all the stuff that we've seen already. Obviously, what we're talking about, 8K, I believe it's stabilized and all this. I mean, yeah, it looks like a dream camera, to be honest, you know, with that Canon autofocus and all that kind of stuff. But the question is going to be, does it come at a dream camera price? And what I mean by that is high price. I am kind of interested in the R5, but depending on what reduced specs it has, I might be more interested in the rumored R6. So as you know, what they did with the 5D and the 6D, so Canon's weird, sort of like the lower their numbers is sort of the higher the model, at least with the DSLR and mirrorless types. The Cinema EOS line, it's 100, 200. As they go up, they get better. But as they go down, they get better with their other camera. I don't know. But anyway, so the 5D and the 6D were very similar cameras, but there were a few features left out of the 6D. But it was still very close to the capabilities of the 5D. Now, I think they're going to do the same thing with the R6. So I think the R5 will be a beast. I think there will be some features left out for the R6, but that it will still be a comparable camera at a more affordable price, whatever that price ends up being. So I am not settled. I'm not sitting here holding my breath for either of those cameras right now, but if the R5 comes out and it's at a reasonable price, I might get it. If it comes out and it's at an unreasonable price, I might wait for that R6 and hope that it has a more reasonable price with a, obviously sacrificing a few features, which we don't know what those will be. So that's my thoughts on that, all speculation, but I'm interested. I always have my ear to the ground, but yeah. Oh, goodness. Kevin says, love the polls, and then Shiz had to take it there with Pole Dance Away. Yeah, okay, yeah. Hey, family show, man, family show. Actually, no, it's not. I select that it's not for kids, so it's okay. So, oh, coming in right at the end here, Rob, good to see you. And of course, Rob, another one of those contributors who always comes in with the super chats. That's amazing. Thank you very much. Rob, I know we talked about this 2 weeks ago in the last stream, and I'll share it again. This is a good time, but anyone who is super chatting over the course of these next few months and everything, while I'm working on rebuilding and recovering my studio and my house, all of the super chat funds are going to go into the studio rebuild, and I'm putting up a plaque of these lovely people in the studio at the end, and I have made a terrible Photoshop mock-up of said plaque with our current donators. There we go. These are the ones from last week. I will update it with our donators from this week. I know we got some new people. Kevin was in there. Thank you guys very, very much. You will be immortalized on my wall when the studio is complete. But yeah, this is where the super chats will go, and we'll get your lovely names up on here. Again, to anyone out there, no obligation. I'm not requesting that you donate for anything like that, but for these lovely people who feel the need to and have been doing this, some of you on a weekly basis, which is crazy. This is my sign of appreciation, a literal sign of appreciation that will go at the end. So. Let's see here. We had some stuff come in. So Kevin's talking about the R5. Many rumors it will be at or under 4,000. I think Canon will do it to recover the market. If they come in at under 4,000 with that R5, yeah, that's freaking awesome. Goodness gracious. Aram's in here. What happened to the funky animation super chat notifications? They're still here. I think it depends on which screen I'm on. Thank you for yet another super chat. You're out. There it is. Yeah, so it's just a little bit slow. That's one of the Streamlabs things, so it takes it a minute to pop up on there. But that's awesome, man. Thank you very much, Aram. And getting to our last little questions before we wrap this up, and I'll let you all get back to your Saturdays wherever you are. Looks like we're getting into some camera talk here, which I know we could talk the whole rest of Saturday if we dove into that, man. I could talk forever. I would need more water, but let's see here. Shiz says, yeah, maybe to get people into buying RF lenses because S1H, yeah. So, okay, you're talking about Canon really trying to get people on board so that they can also boost sales of their RF mount lenses. Yeah, that would be smart. For what you get, I think $64.99 would even be fair. Yeah, I was thinking probably closer in that range, but we'll see. They could surprise us. And he says, yeah, not that I'd be willing to pay that to switch to full frame, but it does seem like a little bit more of an accurate price to me. But I don't know, Canon might surprise us. But anyway, I am going to wrap this up here. Thank you all in the chat for hanging out. As always, you guys are awesome. If you were not here live, you know, what are you doing? Come on, did you not know? There's a way you can know. You go ahead and you click subscribe down there and you click that little notification bell and you'll be notified every time we have a live show. But I'll give you a secret. It's Saturdays at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And if I'm not going to stream, I tweet about it. And you can find out there that we'll be skipping a show. So links to all the social media and everything are down below as well. So make sure you go ahead and follow me on all those. And a really cool thing that we've been getting some people in as well, I don't want to forget about this, is I have a Discord server. So there's a link to the Discord server down below. Please feel free to pop in there and join if you haven't already. It's a great forum where we can chat and communicate 24/7. You know, you have access to me all the time and people asking questions and sharing stuff in there. So go ahead and join that. It's a cool little community and that's awesome. But if, you know, hopefully this was helpful. I know it was really dense in information, but this is important stuff. Things are going to change and it's, you know, it's something that we're going to have to deal with to get back to work. It is a good thing. You know, it's good to get back to work. It's good to keep people safe, and it's good to be preventative for stuff like this that may happen in the future, because doing this may mean that we're already ready. So if something else happens, you know, some sort of communicable disease or anything like that, if we already have been practicing this for years, you know, and this is just the way things are done, it means that the next time around, the impact is going to be far less on our industry, and we'll be ready for it, and hopefully can just, you know, we'll fare well through the next storm, whatever it may be. So please, if you have any questions about any of this, refer to the links that I put down below. Again, really dense but really helpful articles, and make sure to stay up to date on the information for your particular area. Today is what, Saturday, June 20th of 2020. 2020, look at that. So if you are watching this in the future, this information may have been changed, may have been updated, may be outdated. Please make sure to check on that. And everybody just stay safe out there. Let's get back to content creation. It might be a pain in the butt, but you know what? It's going to be worth it, man, because it's going to get us back to our livelihoods and get back to doing what we love and keeping everybody safe and keeping this wonderful profession progressing forward and keeping it safe for the future. So guys, that is all I've got. Thank you so much for hanging out. Enjoy the rest of your day. I will see you all next Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern time. All right, guys. See ya.